Hey, what's up? Jason here from Unity3D.college. I've done a couple videos in the past about interviewing and getting a job, more from the interviewee perspective, the person going out trying to get a job. And today I wanted to switch that around and do a video on how to interview other people. So if you're hiring for a programmer position or a game developer position, I'm going to go over some of the things that I found that work and some of the things that were totally a waste of time or a flop. So I'm just going to dive right into it without further ado. We'll just start with number one. The first thing I want to talk about are these riddles or brain teasers that you'll see in all sorts of coding interviews. I think they popped up from Microsoft maybe in the late 90s. And I've seen these on both sides. I've given them and received them. And I found that they have zero indication of whether or not the person is actually going to be competent at the job. These riddles, everything from, figure out which light bulb is on which switch by going into a room once. It's always the same set of questions or the same, slightly varied subset of them. If you've been to enough interviews, you've probably heard 90% of them. So you just going to interviews and failing enough is enough to make it so that you can get through those questions. But they really don't tell you anything about how good the person is at coding. They tell you whether or not the person likes riddles, whether or not they really like to think through those riddles, and if they're good at them. Zero indication on whether or not their code is going to be total crap or useful at all. It's not an indicator at all. It feels like it's almost like a fallback, like a lazy way to interview because we don't have a good set of questions or we just need to fill some time. And I mean, I've been to some interviews where the entire interview process was just riddle question after riddle question after riddle question, and then another set of people come in, ask the same stupid riddles, and they're even overlapping each other. And it's just because they have no idea what actual questions to ask. Now, when you want to find out if somebody can solve problems, it's a whole lot better to come up with a real problem that you've solved in your project or in your company, and then present that problem to the candidate and see what kind of solutions they come up with. Do they come up with the same solution that you did? Do they come up with something even better? If they come up with something better, then hey, that's awesome. Most likely what they'll do is they'll come up with something that seems like it would be better on the front, but it's a little bit naive because they just don't know some piece of your functionality or they don't know about some pitfall. But if they can't come up with any solution at all, it's a whole lot better indicator than if they can't figure out, what light bulb is on what switch or whatever stupid math problem that they're never going to actually have to deal with. Give them problems that really relate to what you're doing. If you want to give them riddles, cut the damn riddles completely and replace them with actual problems. Have them solve those problems. It's, like I said, dramatically better. And it relates more to code because then they're talking more in the frameworks and the infrastructure that you're using. And make sure that when you're interviewing them and asking them these things, have them do the stuff in the stack that they're actually going to work in. This is something that I see people fail with all the time. And there's this I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's this idea that if you can code in one language or this one subset of stuff, like you're very good at JavaScript, then you'll be fine as a WPF developer, or you're very good at Python, so suddenly, you'll be great doing game development. You just have to switch over, like as if those skills are 100% transferable, and they're definitely not. It's a complete lie, and if you tell yourself that, then you're just lying to yourself and you're setting up the candidate for failure. If they're not experienced with the stack that you're working in and they're experienced with something else, it's going to take them a long time to ramp up and they're still not going to be nearly as proficient. Don't hire a C# developer to do C++ stuff. Hire somebody that's actually experienced in C++. And same the other way. Don't hire somebody who's all their experiences in assembly and C++ and expect them to come on and do a C# web development job or a Unity job and have them be all up to date. It's just not going to work. The patterns don't really line up exactly. The code is going to be a mess and it's going to suck. So don't fall into that trap that all programming is the same. It's not the same. There are differences, and it does take time to learn. Now, of course, there are some people that are going to just blow you away and excel in any language that they try, and they're going to pick up a language in 2 weeks and be a master at it. But that's probably not the person that's coming in to interview with you. That's a rare person that's not just walking in your door and sending you a resume for a job that they're really just not quite qualified for. So what kind of other things do I ask? So other than these just questions and problems, about, hey, how do you solve this thing? Some other things I really like to dive into are code architecture things. So giving them an actual thing to build and design. And this works well on a whiteboard too. I really hate whiteboards for actually writing out code, but for architecting things with just boxes, lines, and triangles and all that crap, it works out pretty well. And one of the ones, I think, I'm not sure if it was Josh or Gabe, one of the guys I worked for semi-recently, had a pretty cool one that I liked for a web job, which was just to design a URL shortener like Bitly. So just having them go up and architect it. And this was for a web position, so it made sense in a web job. So it drove you through the process of architecting like the server, the client, and all that. And there's no real guidance. It's just like, hey, do you know what a URL shortener is? Yes, go build that. And the same can be done for a video game. So you just pick like a simple game, right? To start off, maybe if this is a junior level one, just be like, ask them, how do you build and architect a Flappy Bird style game, just as a starting point. And then maybe move on to something a little bit more complicated. And I'd go with something that matches the type of thing that you're building. So if you're building mobile games, like mobile puzzle games, ask them how they would architect out a match 3 game and see if they're remembering to take into account things like persisting the player's inventory or the player's progress, sending this stuff up all online and storing that remotely, unlocking different in-app purchases, all that kind of stuff. See if they're really thinking about these things, and then have them give you like a loose code diagram of a rough version of it. So maybe not a detailed, like this is the final thing. Obviously, it's going to be way off from the final thing, but get them to give you a couple classes. Like, what are the core classes in this project? If it's a match 3 game, do you have a board? Do you have a pieces class? Do you have row classes? What do you have? Tell me what you would come up with and see how close that matches and how realistic it is. If they completely fail on it and they can't do it, maybe move on to a different type of game that's similar and matches, still kind of lines up with what you're building, but isn't exactly that they're more comfortable with or that they've played more of. And if they still can't do that, then you're probably going to run into a lot of just design problems where the code just isn't going to flow well. It's not going to be architected very well. And again, if this is like super junior position, fine, whatever. Maybe that doesn't matter and you're just going to teach them. But if you're not planning on spending most of your time training up junior developers, you want to make sure that they can architect these things and keep stuff kind of working and build it all up. Now, I also like to dive into the solid principles a little bit and see if they at least know what one or two of them are. Ideally, if they can just list them all off and give a brief explanation, that's perfect. Most of the time I found that only maybe 20-25% of developers really understand the principles behind this solid clean code architecture stuff. And those developers also tend to just be better developers. Now, not always. It's not always going to be the case that somebody who can recite off solid and use it perfectly all the time is going to be the best developer. But on average, they tend to be more interested in learning and just kind of understand these things. And the one, I guess, if you're going through solid, if you're not familiar with it, by the way, I got a whole series that you can check out. I'll link them down below. But the one thing that really is important for me is if they at least understand the single responsibility principle, which is just that a class should be responsible for a single thing, should have that one single responsibility, and not go beyond that. The whole point there is to keep it clean. And if they understand that, even if they don't necessarily do it all the time, if they at least understand that and they understand the value of it, the work that you're going to get out of them is going to be a lot better than if they don't. So what other kind of things do I like to check for? Well, I like to dive in a little bit on some C# fundamentals when I'm doing a Unity project. Like, do they understand delegates, events, actions, lambdas, link? Do they know the downsides to those? Do they know when they can use them, when they can't? And do they know any good performance pitfalls? So I'll usually ask them, like, hey, what are things to watch out for if you're coding this kind of game? Like, what are possible performance issues that we could run into? If they don't know any at all, they can't, even recite off a single one, they probably don't have very much experience. They've probably never built something and then actually had to profile it and figure it out and fix it. But the better developers, they might just go through a couple issues that they've run into in the past. They'll run through things that they've seen in the profiler, problems that they've had in their own games. And, if they've built games of their own, they should have had problems and had to fix these. So I like to go through and just ask them, again, just generic, like, what are a couple performance pitfalls to watch out for? Give me a list. Give me 1, 2, 3 things, whatever it is. Even if it's as simple as turn off the damn logging because, debug.log is going to destroy your performance in your game. Like, make sure that's not on in your actual builds. Hell, make sure that's not on in your performance testing in your debug builds, probably, unless you really need it. And then the final thing and most important thing, so saving this for the end, is what projects are they working on their own? Like, what are they building that's not a work project or a school project? If it's nothing at all and they never did anything at all, they're probably just going to be disqualified. I just go, hey, push them off. Like, unless they blew me away with all the other stuff and their work projects are just super amazing, it's a big sign that they're just not really that into game development or programming in general. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you want to be a balanced person that, likes to code a little bit at work and then likes to go do whatever else at night, that's fine. But they're not going to be very likely to be your star programmers that are really into it and really learning things and really providing a lot of value. You want to find the developers who have side projects that they're working on that keep them interested and keep them learning, and they're really into programming and development enough that they're doing things, and they're doing things that they're even willing to share, even if it's just like a GitHub repo or they've uploaded a game or two to itch.io or one of those other sites, simmer.io, pretty cool one for Unity stuff. And just to clarify again, just because they're not working on anything right now doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Like, maybe they're had something going on and they haven't been able to, but they've done a bunch of side projects in the past. That'll work too, but really ideally I like to have them working on stuff just on their own. They've got projects that they're really passionate about where they're constantly developing and learning. Anyway, I think I've gone on for quite a while here and just talked through a lot of things. Just to reiterate the points, really low-level questions on things that they're not going to use day-to-day, not very helpful. Algorithm questions, I didn't really mention this. 90% of the time, they're totally useless. They're algorithms that you're just not going to use in your actual projects. Now, if you have an algorithm that you're using in your project and it makes sense and it's important that people know it, maybe ask that. But if you're just asking random algorithm problems because you want to fill space and find out if they love algorithms and love to optimize crap that doesn't need to be optimized anymore because somebody's already done it, just avoid those. Avoid the riddle questions too. Dive more into architecture, clean code, find out how they're going to name things, how they're going to architect out classes, and what kind of problems they've actually solved. What performance issues. Give them real world problems that you've had and run them through those. Anyway, that's all I got for today. If you have some comments or suggestions for other things to look for when you're interviewing people, please drop them down below, because I'm always interested in more ideas and just more things to ask to improve this process more. So That's a lot of mores all in one sentence, huh? All right, anyway, thanks again for watching. Have a great day, and keep coding and all that fun stuff.